Aloha and welcome back to the Kupuna Connections television series. I'm Cullen Hayashida and we are talking today about a very important topic that the City and County of Honolulu has, having to do with what we call ADRC services in Hawaii. So first of all, let me welcome our guests and ask all of my co-hosts as well as my guests to introduce themselves. Tony?
I'm and I'm with the KCC Kupuna Education Center. I'm a social worker and I'm the education coordinator.
I'm Lei Shimizu and I'm with the Elderly Affairs Division. I'm the coordinator for the Information and Assistance section. And we are the house for the Aging and Disability Resource Center.
And my name's Ashley Muraoka, and I am the new ADRC coordinator, just newly hired last month. So that's what I've been doing with Elderly Affairs Division. Previously, I was the RSVP volunteer project director.
So one of our new graduates in gerontology, right? Right? Yeah. So and they're rare finds nowadays. Right. So welcome aboard, and thank you for joining us, both of you. Yeah. Well, today we're talking about, as we mentioned, ADRC services in Hawaii. Both of you are with the County of Honolulu. And we've always had this issue with regards to where do people turn for services, and people have had difficulty and frustrations in going to so many different places. And so I wanted to ask you, what is ADRC and why do we need it?
ADRC is a national initiative. It actually came to us in 2005 in the form of a grant, but really the mission for Aging and Disability Resource Center is to meet that particular issue you just mentioned, which is a one-stop where people, it's a go-to and a come-to where people who have questions about, how do I get placement? What does Medicare pay for? What is SSI? How do I get services in my home? I'm getting older, or my kids I don't want to depend on my kids. I want to know what's out there. Is there something that I can, get for free at a lower cost? Anything to do with aging, Elderly Affairs Division, as the area agency on aging, is the one stop, and the Aging and Disability Resource Center is to navigate those people to the right direction. And as you can see, Aging and Disability Resource is not just the aging anymore, it's people with disabilities as well.
Young disabled too then?
Right, over 18.
Oh, I see. Now, we had a slide that you provided us with that showed, I guess, the different kinds of services that you have.
Right.
Can we see that slide there?
And I'd like to have Ashley, go through this. She's our newly promoted ADRC coordinator.
Yes.
Thank you, Ashley.
Can you explain what this is about?
Sure. Well, within Elderly Affairs Division, there's two units, and we come from the Information and Assistance Unit. And under the Information and Assistance Unit is where the Aging and Disability Resource Center is under. But in addition to the ADRC, we also have our public education and training programs. We also have a social work intern practicum program, and we do in-service training for our own staff. So just to make sure that we're up to date on everything new. Like Lei mentioned, Medicare is a huge monster, and it gets updated every year. So we have to make sure we are kept up to date with the new information so we can run our ADRC accurately.
I see.
Yeah. So, sorry.
You want to talk about the grants too that we have?
Yeah, well, let's talk about how the ADRC works.
Okay.
And just to remind people, ADRC is sort of a mouthful, but it does stand for Aging and Disability Resource Center.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the go-to place, as you mentioned, to get resources for seniors and for folks that are disabled. But just how does it work? I think we have a slide for that too. You can go ahead and start.
Okay. The way that people get help, or the approach that we take at Elderly Affairs Division, is what we call the no wrong door approach. And this basically means you can enter the system any which way. You can come directly to us. You can go through one of the service providers that we have contracts with. You can go through some of the hospitals that have always been referring the senior helpline as a referral number for them. So any which way you enter the system, you kind of sort of be handed off to the ADRC.
You can phone us, you can go on our website,
email us.
Yeah, or mail.
Yeah,
or
we have gotten letters in the mail asking for help, like regular snail mail letters, asking for help.
Okay. Okay.
Even caregivers on the mainland or other island will write in
and ask for help for their families that live on Oahu. So once we get that initial contact, we do a intake and assessment, just to identify what is going on, what is the problem in which they're calling. Then if we can handle it over the phone, we provide some resources over the phone. If we feel that it needs a home visit and it's a little bit more intensive of what's going on, we do a home visit to identify and conduct a biopsychosocial needs assessment to really see on an overall approach what is going on physically, emotionally, and environmentally. How maybe it's something to do with their living arrangements or something like that.
So that's that really comprehensive
assessment.
You do it in the home.
Yes, and because we have social workers on staff, and we do have the Masters of Social Work candidates in our office. We usually have 7 to 8 every semester that they get to go out and get some hands-on experience with that as well. And after we identify and do the full assessment, we provide the options counseling, which is nonprofit, government services, and for-profit types of services, dependent upon if they can afford that. We can, give them those options as well. So it's an array of services that they get introduced
so actually,
to.
this is the slide you've been talking about,
Yes,
right?
yes.
It talks about the
kind of the flow of how a client would come through the doors and kind of just follow through all the different steps. And once we come to some potential solutions, we then help them get linked up to services by doing actual application submissions. It could be they want to get some benefits with food stamps, or maybe they don't have insurance, so we can sign them up for Medicaid if they meet the eligibility. And after we do all the submissions of applications, we act as like brokers just to ensure that the service actually starts, and how long will it take to start, so they're not just left hanging leave. No, we're going to stick with them and follow through, make sure the services get started, and we also will then do follow-ups every month, every 2 months, just to see how things are working, because if it's not getting any better, we're going to have to redo that whole thing again and kind of do another session of options counseling. The first set of options didn't work, we're going to try another set.
Now, when you talk, when you talk about these people that are calling or for their loved ones, who's the target population? Are we talking about people, older adults, a certain age, or what are we talking about as far as who is eligible?
For direct services and with the service providers that we contract with, there is an age criteria right now, and that's where the Kupuna care funds go to, and that age is 60 and over. However, the Aging and Disability Resource Center is for people disabled adults, and that's 18 and over right now. So for those people that are not 60, we will be the people that point to the exact entity that can help them, such as if there was developmental disability, then we would redirect them to Department of Health, Developmental Disabilities Division, to get the help. And of course, if they're having a hard time navigating it, we will act as a liaison. We know to contact people there. So, and that's what we would do with the mentally ill as well.
I see. And how about the family? Are they considered to be part of the target as well?
They're the major component, because for those that have families, of course, and caregivers, they are the ones that need the resources the most, and that's what research shows. They're the ones that call us on the helpline the most, is the caregivers or relatives, friends of people who know of a senior who is in need. Most of the time, a senior won't call on their behalf, and so actually, the people that we serve are caregivers.
So you don't have to be a senior. You could be a family caregiver. You could be a friend, a neighbor, anyone who might have a concern or might want to know about the resources.
Right. So, if, for instance, if they wanted to know more about caregiving, then we have your services. to train as caregivers.
Right. What about the relationship between the ADRC and Medicare and Medicaid? How do those come together, or don't they?
Well, it's such a difficult, people find it very difficult to understand Medicare Part D, all the different drug plans.
Yeah, it's quite complicated.
They don't know, they think, there's a confusion. Medicaid sounds like Medicare, so they don't know that Medicare doesn't pay for things, that you have to be eligible income-wise for Medicaid. So those, because there is all of that disarray and confusion, one of the missions of the Aging and Disability Resource Center is to provide some kind of organized way of having these people navigate, and if they are eligible for Medicaid, to sign them up for it, to explain to them what the difference is, what does Medicare pay for. And we have the Benefits Enrollment Grant. It's a Benefits Enrollment Center that we have that actually Ashley was a coordinator for one of those programs. It was another one, a MIPA grant. But what it is we become experts on all of the different plans and helping people to get onto actually even food stamps and other kinds of benefits. So you want to explain a little bit about, especially the confusion of the
briefly,
Medicare?
I can just talk briefly about the Medicare changes every year, especially the Part D plans. They change every year. They'll drop certain prescription drugs from their coverage plan, the coverage, what they'll cover. And seniors have to be aware of these changes in order to pick the right plan so they don't end up paying a lot of money for their prescription drugs. So we can help in checking to see what the plan that they're currently in can cover. If it covers their list of current medications. If it doesn't, we can help them compare plans, across the spectrum that Medicare offers. And this way, we can also enroll them on the spot. If they're choosing to enroll in that plan, we can also help in that process. So I know open enrollment is actually ending tomorrow, so we've been having some what we call events, benefits enrollment events scattered throughout the island. So we've been helping a lot of people during this time, open enrollment sessions.
So when people come to ADRC and ask for services, you need to find out, of course, what kind of insurance plan they have, or what kind of, where can they depend on some resources, right? So if someone has money, you can make arrangements for some services that need to be paid for through cash, I suppose, yeah.
Oh,
and you make arrangements for that.
That's part of the options counseling, to give them the entire array. Sometimes people don't want services that have a low cost, so we give them the entire range. And what fits it, in social work they call it person and environment and person-centered, what the client wants. So that's how it's driven. As if they're interested in a little bit more quality of something maybe, or a variety of something, we might have to look at a different service provider, and they can make the decision on what kinds of services and how much they want to spend on it.
I'd just like to take a moment now to welcome some of our viewers that might be joining us, and to let everyone know that today we're talking with Ashley Moroka and Leisha Bizu from the Aging and Disability Resource Center, which we call the ADRC. And the program is the Kupuna Connections, and we are sponsored by Kapi'olani Community College Kupuna Education Center. And for more information on these programs and our center, you can go to our website at www.kupunaeducation.com. And now we'll continue with our discussion.
So I guess my next question has to do with these real people, real people. Typical cases that you folks run into day after day. Can you share with us some examples of who are these people that are in need of services?
Well, since we're talking so much about Medicare, I wanted to let Ashley talk about the very first case that she had when she came to EAD. And when I took the phone call also, because I answered the phone as well, and I got this call, and that call was one where if we weren't going to help this woman, she was probably, not going to call anybody else. She was just really in tears, down and out, and it was a situation where she was almost facing homelessness but had to move in with her parents in the very last moment. And it was because her husband had late onset of schizophrenia, and the drugs, the medication was so expensive. She literally, when people say they don't have enough money, I have to decide between eating some food or paying for their medicine, that's the situation she was in.
Wow.
It was costing her, she was paying for the pills by the week. So Ashley we have a wonderful story about that.
Yeah, it was a great success. And I'm happy, it was on my second day on the job. They said, can you take this call? So, a woman called the senior helpline. Like Leigh said, she was in tears. She was at her wit's end. She said, if you can't help me, I think I'm just about to give up, because she didn't know where else to go. And she said she's been given phone number after phone number saying, call this number. And I'm sure a lot of people face that situation where they call a number and they say, well, you called the wrong place. You need to call this number. And you call that number and they give you another number. So that's what happened to this woman. I spoke with her, tried to see what is going on, found out that she was paying over $1,000 a month for her husband's medication because he did develop late onset of schizophrenia. He had to take over 12 different medicines just to manage.
How old was the husband?
He was in his 60s, like early 60s.
Early 60s.
And she was now became the caregiver she was about in her late 50s because he was older than her. But she became the caregiver, trying to handle Medicare because he was on disability as well. But she did not know why all of a sudden she was paying over $200 for one of his medicines. And I said, well, it sounds like you hit the Medicare donut hole, which a lot of people sometimes do. It's that gap in coverage that Medicare no longer will pay for medicines until that client or Medicare beneficiary pays about over $4,000 out of pocket for their medicines, and then Medicare will come back in what they call catastrophic coverage, because you need so much medicines that now Medicare will pick up the rest of the tab for you. But so they fell into what we know as Medicare donut hole, and paying over $1,000 a month for their drugs. I said, well, lucky thing you're calling us, because I'm now in charge of what was formerly the MIPA grant, Medicare Improvements for Patients and Providers Act grant, where there are several different benefit programs that she did qualify for based on her income and assets levels. And we signed her up for the Extra Help with Part D, which is also known as low income subsidy. That benefit helps them to pay for the payment of the actual prescription drug, so it drops it back down to a co-payment. Instead of them having to pay 100%, they'll pay maybe $2.30 for, and $6 to $5 for their name brand drugs.
Wow, that's a pretty big difference.
Yes. And also, we did sign the husband up for the Medicare Savings Plan. And this benefit actually eliminates that Medicare Part B premium that is automatically deducted out of senior Social Security.
So that would be a big help.
Yeah. It's right now, I think it's $115 a month that some seniors are paying. So that's a lot of money that they can be saving. And at the time when I enrolled this person, we did have the State Pharmacy Assistance Program. And that actually picked up the co-payments of some of the medicines. So in the end, we dropped the prescription payment from over $1,000 to about $30 a month. And so now she could reestablish themselves, start to pay some family members back that they borrowed money from, start to get back on their feet so they can live on their own and rely on other family members. So when she found out that when she went to the pharmacy to pick up her husband's prescription drugs the next month, and she only owed $5. She called me right after. She went to the pharmacy and she was just so happy. And then we were hearing tears of joy now instead of tears of agony or stress. So that was a caregiver that called our office, because
Right.
a lot of caregivers are having to deal with the paperwork
Right.
things too for their loved ones. So that was a success story that we always say.
Can you tell
that's
us
a good
another story like that?
You want to tell yours first?
You know, we have a lot of cases where, as you see on TV too, the hoarders and clutterers, and those are actually some of the more really, really difficult kinds of cases that social workers would face. Right. So we had a situation with an individual who was in his 60s. So these are actually fairly young elders.
Yeah.
But for years, he had been a hoarder, what we call hoarder, clutterer, to the point where his apartment, it was actually a little cottage. It was filled to the ceiling, literally every room. But it started from one room and moved and it went into the bathroom and into the kitchen. And it got to a point where his house was so filled with stuff that he moved out of his house, and he was living on the side, under a tarp, and couldn't even go back into the house. So when we got this case, we had some interns work with us, and we were able to really engage with this individual. And he has a lot of strengths. That's what social workers do, is we look for their strengths. And long story short of this is that with our engagement with him, and also with allowing us to talk to his family, who was on the mainland actually, we were able to, in a matter of really 4 months, we had everything taken out of his studio, his cottage. We donated a lot of stuff, because many of the things that he liked were actually like books, in good condition. Mm-hmm. He liked to collect stuffed animals and things like that too. Just a collector of all kinds of things. So we were able to donate and make other people happy, which made him happy. And in 4 months, we're able to go back into the house and have a lunch with this person.
So the question though is, who requested the service? I mean, was it the hoarder himself?
No, these kinds of calls come in actually from either neighbors or landlords or management companies. Sometimes it's the Board of Water, because they went in to fix a leak and they find something, or sometimes because it draws like rodents and things, so neighbors will call because they feel that that's what's causing it. So it's all different ways that a case can be called into. Sometimes it's with the fire department or the EMS, because the individual gets sick. Someone sees them, falling down. And
Right.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
Good examples.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what is expected in the future with ADRC? Do you have anything on the
Well,
horizon?
we have a 5-year plan with the state Executive Office on Aging, and as we move along with that 5-year plan, this is a state initiative. It's a nationwide initiative, but it is to really have a fully functioning ADRC and to have some case management components involved in it. Our benefits enrollment center, where we can help people to enroll in all of these things like food stamps, Medicare help, because that happens yearly, and also to link them to services, and then to be the guiders to navigate them through the services if they're not eligible for any of the Kupuna care or other kinds of services that don't have a fee.
So you're actually enrolling them in some of those services where you used to just refer them to the
Right.
agency.
We're
That's the
actually
difference.
putting the pen to the paper.
Right.
Oh, that's quite a big difference.
And we want to make sure that it's the right service that they are getting, and also if they're satisfied with it. So we're looking at measuring performance-based kinds of measurements to we're going to be doing some satisfaction surveys and ways to measure whether we're actually performing as we should, as a state, really, city.
Now,
as a state.
I know just from your past activities and what you've shared with us in the past, that you have now satellites throughout Oahu. So is that part of the plan to keep building more satellites?
It is, because one of the major factors of people getting services or having access or not having it is because they're not close to, or our elders don't always have all of the electronic gadgets we have that younger people have. Some older people have hearing and vision impairment. They don't watch TV. So these are, and then a lot of the seniors that need help are homebound, or family caregivers are, way in the rural areas. So we've targeted looking at the rural areas. It's kind of based on the village concept, where we feel that if we can embed ourselves, our office, and all of our services in your community, then the community owns us, and they will know us, and we will help their community. We're looking at volunteers, because volunteers is a huge part of getting services to our elders and the caregivers. Programs like Project Donna volunteer program, or the Waikiki Friendly Neighbor.
Right.
Kalihi Kokua Valley is only for the Kalihi area, but it's a wonderful program because it services that area.
Right.
So that similar kind of concept, taking our little village and having them. Right now, it's in a hospital. In hospitals, we're looking at Kahuku Hospital. We have Kahuku Hospital. We have Hauula Civic Center, though, and maybe Castle Medical Center. We're looking at.
Let me ask you. Since we're just about out of time right now, if the viewers have seen so many things, heard so many things, a lot of good stories, but if there was one message that you needed to share with the viewers listening right now, what would you tell them? One advice.
Call Ashley. We're all
Good advice.
768-7700.
Okay. If we can show the last slide there, I think we have. I guess we need to just ask you for your last, suggestion and tip, which would be to ask to call that number and to ask for Ashley.
Right, that's my tip.
Okay. And these are responsive people that is going to be will be serving our community. And so this is about all the time that we have. So thank you very much for joining us today for this wonderful conversation about ADRC services in the City and County of Honolulu. Thank you and aloha.